I want to talk about Mazda because it's a company that I have a tremendous respect for. You see, when Ford got rid of Mazda in 2011, it went back to Japan and it completely retooled and rethought and reimagined its company. It began with the Mazda CX-9. It was a great little SUV, and then they overhauled the Mazda MX-5, arguably one of the best sports cars currently on sale. Basically, everything Mazda has been producing ever since 2011 has been surprisingly of good quality, well put together, fun to drive, and rather unique. Now, I'm currently sitting in the trunk of its largest vehicle. It's called the CX-9. It's a three-row midsize SUV. There's absolutely nothing exciting about that segment, and in many ways, the CX-9 kind of falls apart and doesn't exactly compete quite well in some areas, but it does have tremendous qualities. This is probably the best vehicle to illustrate Mazda's I don't give a shit attitude. Basically what they're trying to tell you is if you don't want one, go buy something else. Now this is the 100th anniversary edition. You may ask, why would Mazda do that to an SUV? Well, they're doing that to all their vehicles for 2021. Yes, believe it or not, it's been 100 years that Mazda has been existing in the world. It is one of the oldest Japanese car makers, and the 100th edition comes only in white. It has really cool red seats with red carpet as well. You get 100th anniversary logos here and there, and on the key, it's basically the most expensive CX-9 in the lineup. You'll have to give credit to Mazda for being able to manufacture an SUV that can still compete with heavy hitters like Honda and Hyundai and Nissan and Ford. Mazda is a small company. It's still independent. Okay, sure, it has ties with Toyota on certain things and FCA for the MX-5 and Fiat 124, but it really is still its own company. It's not owned by anyone. It isn't part of like some kind of conglomerate like Nissan and Mitsubishi, for instance. And for such a small company with limited resources, I'm always fascinated by what they come out with. Vehicles like the CX-9, okay, you got a 6-speed automatic, you don't have any hybrid technology, you only have one engine, no V6 engine, but it's better built than many vehicles in its class. It's more fun to drive than a lot of those vehicles. And this signature edition, 100th anniversary, is quite convincing. Looking at the layout, the build quality, the materials, I mean, look at this brushed aluminum right here in the door. It feels so solid, of great quality. Now, obviously, this is the 100th anniversary edition is not exactly cheap. Mazda sells this thing $55,000. Are they going to sell a lot of them? Probably not, but it is a very limited edition. So if you do buy a 100th anniversary, I reckon that it might eventually be worth more than the other CX-9s. It is the rarest model of 2021. It's based on the Signature Series CX-9. Signature is Mazda's high-end division. Mazda wants to take on the European car makers. They really want to offer premium luxury, but not necessarily at premium luxury pricing. Signature is $53,000, but most CX-9s will be below the $50,000 range. Now, this is pretty much the price of all mainstream mid-size three-row SUV. Now, under the hood sits a 2.5-liter turbocharged four-cylinder. Now, I know what you're saying, that in this category, you'll need a V6 engine to tow and for long-term reliability. However, this four-cylinder engine from Mazda, which they call Skyactiv G, is rather solid. There hasn't been any real mechanical issues with it lately. Sure, towing rating is lower though than let's say a Kia Telluride or a Honda Pilot. Most of the vehicles in this segment will tow 5,000 pounds. The Mazda CX-9 is limited to 3,500 pounds. So don't expect to tow a very big boat with this thing, but 3,500 pounds is still quite decent. You're also going to lose out on cargo space. Any Mazda vehicle tends to be a bit smaller than their competitors. Mazda is a company that will favor driving dynamics and styling over, well, in this case, convenience. It's a bit frustrating, but it's not that bad. I mean, it is still a large SUV back there. It's three-row. The one I have has the captain chairs for the second row, but you can also have a CX-9 with 3 rows in the middle and 2 in the back. I sat back there, and it's okay. Hey, it's actually not bad. Yeah, it's actually better than I thought. So the interesting part about this engine, well, first of all, it's made it to a 6-speed automatic transmission. Again, the rest of the segment is now moving on to 8 speeds, 10 speeds, or CVTs. But Mazda does a good job with the gearing. This is probably this vehicle's best asset. This transmission is telepathic. You have a tiny little button here next to the shifter that allows you to engage sport mode. And when you do so, the transmission's mapping changes. It becomes quicker to react. It's livelier. And when you gun it, it just hands you the perfect gear, floor it again, and it downshifts again. It's fun. It's actually quite fun, and it allows this turbocharged engine to develop its full power. This is an engine that has most of its power down low. It's a very torquey engine. This engine pumps out 250 horsepower and 320 foot-pounds of torque. However, it's only possible when you're using a high-octane fuel, 93 octane. Yeah, I know, that's kind of odd. I mean, it's cool in a way, meaning that when you put higher octane fuel, you actually have more power. But if you run it on regular, it will run on regular pump gas, you're down to 227 horsepower and only 310 foot-pounds of torque. So you're kind of missing out on what your CX-9 can offer, which is a bit dumb because the competition offers naturally aspirated V6s that you can fuel with 87 octane and they'll develop the same amount of horsepower. What would have been clever for Mazda is to offer off the bat the same performance as the competition, and then as an option, when you add higher octane, have like 350 horsepower, for instance, that'd be like similar to an Acura MDX Type S. I want to talk about the seating position in a CX-9. It is perfect. I love the way I'm sitting. These seats are nice and comfortable. I have a beautiful steering wheel, a nice layout. I mean, it's a small diameter steering wheel. It responds rather quickly to your commands, but it's a very vague and over-assisted steering, however. Anyway, in this category, people are not necessarily going to go to the track. They're going to prefer comfort over performance, so I guess that's fine. Then there's the gauge layout. What Mazda does really well is kind of fusion analog and digital gauges. Sure, the entire segment mostly now has a fully digital interface. Mazda still hangs on to the gauges, but again, the presentation is good. I can alternate between the information that's in front of me with this little button here on the steering wheel. Everything is very intuitive, light, and easy to operate. It's the same thing with the infotainment system. Like BMW, Mazda uses this central knob right here on the center console. It prevents me from playing with the screen while I'm driving. That being said, this is Mazda's old system, Mazda Connect. There's a newer system now in the Mazda 3 and the CX-30. The CX-9, the next generation CX-9 will receive it. Remember, this vehicle has been on the market now for almost 5 years. It received a mid-cycle refresh 2 years ago, and it's about to change. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the next model in Mazda's lineup to get an overhaul. However, I'm told that the next Mazda 6 will have an inline 6 and rear-wheel drive layout. Perhaps the CX-9 will follow along, and if it's the case, it'll be very cool. To go into manual mode, you just pull the transmission and the shift knob towards you, and then you pull a paddle shifter, and here you go. This transmission, third gear, here we go. Good power. I mean, it is a heavy SUV, but it's very smooth as well. It really just delivers its power effortlessly. The fact that it has so much torque down low really allows it to pick up and go, but it's never frantic. It's never super energetic. It just does it with a lot of refinement. Again, it's very similar to what you'll get with the European car makers. The handling is also good. It's well buttoned down on the road, but it is a bit bouncy. It's very jittery. The suspension is what I like to call dry. That's a very typical Mazda trait. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it will give the CX-9 kind of a juvenile, young attitude. It feels small, it feels light on its feet. That's fantastic. However, if you're looking for a more subtle or enveloping experience from your SUV, you're not necessarily going to get it from this. You'll get something a bit more daily drivable from, let's say, a Honda Pilot. I honestly doubt that people are going to pay Audi money for a Mazda. However, the end product is quite impressive. You are still going to pay less than a German alternative, but you're getting build quality, craftsmanship, and in my opinion, the looks that are quite similar to some of its German rivals. If you're willing to sacrifice a bit of towing capacity and cargo space, then the Mazda CX-9 is a very compelling three-row SUV. It's built like a rock. It's impeccably reliable. I mean, these engines so far have not seen any problems. Performance is ample and the driving dynamics are rather fun. Mazda is a brand that you should consider. I'm not paid to say this. I personally like this company, but I would obviously get a Miata. I really can't wait till summer so I can drive one. I'm tired of driving SUVs, honestly.